Hey everyone, welcome to Rena Resilient Masterclass on Communication, Communication 101. I'm Jaclyn and I am the owner of Muse Group. We are a marketing and communication agency, so this makes sense. I want to dive right in because we want to keep these classes quick and just to where you guys can learn all you can. So today we are going to start with focusing on just 3 topics. Our first topic is going to be how to communicate with yourself, which seems like a silly one, but this is the biggest one that people forget. How to communicate with your coworkers and how to communicate with your clients and customers. So let's dive in. All right, so number 1, how to communicate with yourself. So I think something that's really easy to do when you're just overwhelmed, especially during these times when we're all stuck at home and nobody's around and you can just get in your head and go down this super crazy spiral. So some things that I do is I keep a notebook, something super simple like this. It's a calendar. Sorry, it gets a little messed up because we have a cool background of Rena Resilient. But every day I kind of write out a list for myself, and my team will make fun of me because you can't read my writing, but that doesn't matter as long as I can read it. And if you write it out, a lot of people use virtual calendars, and those are fine too. Nothing against those. We use them within Muse Group, but it's a lot better if you can actually take a pen to paper and write it out. A, you're releasing all of that energy onto paper, and B, the satisfaction of just crossing it off is so wonderful. So that's number 1. Number 2 are these handy dandy sticky notes. Super easy to find. I think that it's really nice to leave them all over the house and kind of give yourself notes and, remind you that you're doing a good job. And, if you need to do some house chores, also remind you like, hey, that's okay, you can do them, and even crossing them off on your list. But it's just a check-in with yourself, not necessarily virtually, but more just, again, the pen to paper and those sticky notes around the house. And then something that I read a long time ago is when you are communicating with yourself in your head, that self-talk that gets after you, is to say your name. So for me, I would be like, all right, Jaclyn, we're getting after today. We're going to do this. Or, today's a tough day. I have some personal stuff going on, and you know what? I'm going to give myself a little bit of a break. Jaclyn. Seems like a silly one, but it definitely helps. So we've got the calendar, we have the sticky notes, we have referring to ourselves by our first names within our head, and then just finding a little time for that mindfulness, and whether that's meditation or doing a little bit of yoga, some physical movement. It just really helps you to work through the thoughts in your head and how you're going to get after the next day, especially day after day after day of being inside and only communicating with the outside world like we are right now with Zoom. Taking a walk outside can really just, no phones, don't bring your phones or headphones for music, just clear your head. A place where I do this is in the bath, but for those guys out there, they're kind of against baths. Well, at least my fiance is. And another thing is all color. And these, man, anytime you try and show anything on here, these are just really cool coloring pages by our graphic designer, Elise. And you can buy them. They're super affordable. And print them out for yourself and just, sit back, relax, and do a little coloring. This is so funny on the Zoom, you look all crazy, but we want to be sure that we're branded. So that's a part of communication too, for another day. So yeah, mindfulness is what we'll end on with communicating with yourself. Okay, so that's first. I think once you feel like, okay, I can take on today, I've got my notes, I've written down the top 3 things I want to accomplish today, I've written down a cute little stickies around the house to remind me like, I've got this, I've set my mind and like took a walk or did some coloring, and now you're like, okay, I'm in a good headspace. So you get online into your, we'll call it a Slack channel. For those of you who don't know what Slack is, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen in just a second because it's some people are like, duh, I know what Slack is, but there's a lot of people out there who don't use that. And then basically it's just a messaging platform that you'll communicate with your coworkers, which we're diving into now. So you're in this good mood, you're logging on, and all of a sudden you see from your coworker, man, I'm having a horrible day. I'm sick of being in quarantine. I never see anyone. Me and my husband are fighting. My kids are being crazy, whatever it may be. And you're like, God, I was just checked in with myself and communicating with myself, and I'm all good. And now I'm logging in and then taking on all of this. How do I then go to communicate with that person? So at Muse, we use a platform called Slack. And I'm going to show you guys right now what that looks like. Uh, so basically what we have over here is the channels that we can all be a part of, and it just depends on what client we're talking about. Look, we've got Rena Resilient in there. And in our general channel, it just goes to everyone. The girls were super cute and got me a gift over the weekend, so I put it in here, and that was kind of the last thing. And then today we were just kind of talking about what a client needed, and then other people put in here what they're doing to take a break. But if you're looking for a good place to communicate with your employees, Slack is number one. But when you do have an employee, you know, like I said, you're in that great self mood and you log on, you're like, what we've done is create this channel called Good News Muse. So people, especially during this time, need a little bit of an extra. So maybe if your employee's having a bad day, step up and be like, I'm going to take care of him or her, and I'm going to put something in the Good News Muse, and I'm going to target for them. So we'll put something silly like, this free broadcast. It's basically just shares like fun, just little sayings and quotes. And then on here, we've had some fun quarantine drawings that we threw in. And, you know, there's videos on cats dancing and aquariums. But this is a good way to keep in touch with your employees, but also just, you know, spread some good news. So if you've never heard of Slack, the way that we organize it is some of our clients, what we're brainstorming is over here. Our general is when we want to communicate with everyone. The good news is here. And then we do an I'm grateful for. This is another great way to check in with yourself and your team. And every morning we wake up and we put 5 things that we're grateful for in here. It's just so special and helps you to learn a lot about your employees or your coworkers, and also just remind yourself that, hey, I can find 5 things today that I'm grateful for. So that is an example of one way to kind of communicating with your employees. Another way is we have the direct messaging tool over here. So if we wanted to communicate directly with an employee, what we'd do is we'd pop over here and we'd be like, okay, Elise, I really need to have a conversation with you. This is myself over here, or maybe I need to pop in and have one directly with Nadia. So it's just a really good way to communicate directly. And I'm going to stop that share and you get to see me again. Yay. So on top of Slack, what we do is kind of communicate through Zoom like we are now. We'll schedule a weekly team meeting through here, both on Monday and Thursday, beginning and the end of the week. It's a great way to check in with everybody to make sure that, you know, everybody's doing good. And then if you wanted to, because now we can't have those face-to-face with our employees or our coworkers, schedule a Zoom with them and be like, hey, I think we should eat lunch together. Schedule a Zoom to eat lunch and, you know, enjoy each other's time. And maybe if they did say something in Slack or, you know, in Zoom or in a text message or an email, which can always be misconstrued, hop on a Zoom and have that conversation there directly. And I think it's always a good reminder when you are doing those Zooms to, you know, maybe put on a little mascara like I did today and put on some earrings, and it's, you know, have it be a more professional conversation versus that chill environment that we're all used to right now. I think oftentimes when you want to talk about something serious and then you log on and someone's got a hat on and, you know, didn't really show up to the meeting like you came ready to have a conversation, you're instantly not in the mood to talk to them. So yeah, so to keep it professional. I mean, it's okay to have casual. We do casual Mondays. If anybody shows up dressed up on Zoom on a casual Monday, I would be completely shocked. But, you know, on any other day of the week, if we're popping on and having a meeting, you know, at least show up. Show up for yourself too, going back to taking care of yourself. So another thing, so we do Slack, which I just showed you kind of a layout as a way to communicate with your coworkers. And then we also have Trello. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen right there again. Okay, good. You guys are on here. So the next step is Trello, and I'm just going to show you our Trello. So Trello is basically an organizational board to put tasks in, and you can move them around, you can edit them. I'm sure you can find a whole session on Trello, and maybe even in one of our master's classes, we're going to release one, so keep a lookout. But basically, this is our PR board. We also have graphic design, social media, sales, some intern to-dos, just, other stuff going on. And then I have a personal board in here because I'm getting married, so that's completely separate from this, but if you're wondering. And basically the way that we lay out our Trello board in order to kind of keep communication going within our PR team is we lay it out by the day of the week, and then stuff that's completed will go over here, and then we have some pitch planning. And basically this is just an easy way to keep your coworkers or employees organized by putting out your task lists in here for the week. All right, so let's see. Zoom happy hours are great too. We have one tomorrow night, but just a way to kind of get back online, get in touch with your team, have a few drinks, loosen up, and it just keeps everybody on board, so it's good. All right, and last but not least is communicating with your clients or customers. And this one we're going to spend a little bit more time on because I feel like that's really the meat of this, is where people want to know, like, hey, we're in this crisis, we're in this horrible time, and how do I get back to engaging with my clients and my customers? So I'm going to start off by showing you guys a couple examples from two of our clients. So our first client is going to be, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen, is going to be the Reno Philharmonic. So basically when all of this happened, we're like, crap, the Reno Philharmonic, they make their money and survive off of having concerts for people. What can we do to still communicate with our audience and still be the brand that we want to be, but also, keeping going with our spreading music with the community? So season 51 is all about experiencing joy. And so what we did alongside with their marketing team over there, we came up with the idea of spreading joy every day. And we are at Reno Phil, they're still paying their musicians. So what we did is right now, every week we are releasing a video from our musicians, and they're spreading joy by playing music for you. Some of our musicians are even doing it live, like this one right here. She's playing in her patio. But yeah, so it's just been really lovely to get these musicians together.
I'm Johnny Lenz. I play cello in the Reno Philharmonic.
I'll let you guys hear a little bit of clip from some of this music. Right, so I'll turn that back on actually. All right, so basically, with that, we're still spreading joy in the community, and the Reno Phil still gets a chance for everybody to hear their music, but it's just a little bit different. We have to pivot, and we had to be a part of, sharing the music from the musicians, but we're still spreading joy, and it's just a beautiful thing. So the next thing I will show you is Rattlesnake Club, which is a restaurant that we do social media for, and they barely even did to-go food for people within the restaurant. So for them to completely move, we had to pivot again. So like Reno Phil, they're still wanting a way to communicate and interact with their customers, but now nobody's allowed to come in and get their restaurant. So what do? So what we did is we completely pivoted and moved some of their menu, the most easiest and popular items, looks good, huh? Online. So now people can still order, still feel part of the brand, still feel like, hey, they care about us, So in a day, we completely moved everything online. It was some serious fun times, we'll call it. But basically, I think when you are launching these type of campaigns, you have to remember, okay, I'm finding a way to communicate with my audience, but what can go wrong? Which you're like, it's just moving food to an online platform. Yeah, but then you have to think about the staff that has to get those orders from the website when they're not used to using the website, or the people who have to work to do the curbside pickup. who's going to do that? Oh, and we need a sign outside of the curbside pickup. So I think number one, when you're coming up with these really fun ideas, first think what could go wrong. And once you work that out and figure out what can go wrong, it's only up from there because you've already solved all of your problems. And that's probably another class that we'll have is crisis communication. So when things do go wrong, so pay attention to that. And then making sure you have strategy and implementation. So you can come up with these ideas all day long, but if you don't have any strategy behind them, like, hey, yeah, we are going to do a spread the joy campaign, but what if nobody watches it? Which hasn't been the case, luckily, with Reno Phil. But if nobody watches it on social media, how else can we reach these people? So our brains will go to, okay, we're going to remind them through email marketing because we do have an older demographic that may not have a social media presence. And, most of the time they will check their email. If not, maybe we can still support the local printers in town and send a mailer, hard word to say, directly to these people's houses so that they can then find out what's going on through there. And then implementation, that's what I was talking about, going back to Rattlesnake Club when we're like, great, we have this idea in place, the online store is up for people to purchase food for curbside pickup. Now, who's going to operate that? Marketing agencies are great at coming up with ideas and throwing them at the clients and then be like, cool, go for it. We did our part, but you definitely want to be sure to stay there through the end to make sure everything goes smoothly. And that's usually what we like to do over at News Group too, just to make sure everything's good. And then I think once you have all of that done together, you need to reevaluate and still be keeping in communication with your audience. So I think a lot of businesses will launch these great ideas and then they're forgetting about their audience. So originally, I'm only giving you these two examples. We had to pivot for all of our clients, but these were the best ones that I thought easily understood and shown. But for Rattlesnake Club, we just recently, as of 2 days ago, had to change their hours because we were doing 12 to 6 o'clock for pickup. But then we realized, hey, gosh, nobody's really coming in for lunch. And, our busiest times when people were allowed to come in and visit the restaurant were at dinner. So we need to be communicating with our audience and asking them. That's something that's so funny. People always forget to ask their audience online, like, hey, what hours would you like us to have curbside pickup? And that's exactly what we did. And so we got more of a feedback that people wanted us for dinner and we were closing at 6. And most people, because it's getting lighter later now, don't think about ordering dinner till 7. So we communicated with our audience, we found out what they wanted, and then we implemented it. So the last thing I'm going to end on, because I hate being a talking head, is keeping it real. So that's the theme of this Communication 101 class, even throughout all 3 of the topics we just quickly discussed. So keeping it real with yourself, like, hey, if I'm having a tough day and I'm just not in the mood for client meetings, even through Zoom or anything, I think you need to tell yourself, like, hey, I've worked really hard. And even if you haven't, but just give yourself a little bit of a break. And this is definitely something I struggle with. So I'm right there with you people. But I think, again, communicating with yourself and checking in and being like, hey, I'm not having the best day that I could be having right now. So maybe I'm not going to send the super long client email or get back to a coworker that kind of upset me right away. I'm going to take a little bit of time for myself because I checked in and I'm going to get back to this in the morning or later today when I checked in on myself and I'm feeling a lot better. We all have days, but just don't act when you're having one of those days, if you get what I'm saying. Keep it real with yourself. And same with the coworkers. So if you are working with coworkers that, hey, it's a hostile environment and even through Zoom, you can feel their energy or through Slack, maybe, like I said, schedule that quick Zoom meeting with them and have a check-in because now they're not in the office or working at the business where you were and you can't just pull them aside in person and be like, hey, what's going on? Now keep it real and just be like, hey, the thing you said in the meeting last week really got to me, or I've been getting your emails and I think you need to add a little nicety to them. I'm sure we've all dealt with those people who don't even say hi when they shoot you an email or thank you on an end. And you're like, God, what's wrong with them? But in reality, they're just super busy or we're distracted or doing something else. But because we're dealing in this virtual world right now, we need to be communicating more than ever. So that's definitely the number one, is keep it real with your coworkers, but also over communicate. And then keeping it real with your clients and customers. So, if you are online and you do need help and you're like, hey, we could go out of business this month if we don't get the support from our community, or hey, we really need, you know, more eggs so we can serve breakfast. I don't know, you got a food shortage or something. But I think a lot of the businesses that are failing during this time are the ones that aren't asking for help or aren't keeping it real with their customer. Like, hey, we're surviving off of making masks for people. I know businesses like that um, quality events and design. They were our neighbor over on or they are our neighbor over at our news group office on 10 State Street. And they were an event coordinating business where you can go there and have events, but now they're completely surviving off of making face masks for people. They're sewing them, hand sewing them. But they pivoted and they were honest with their customer, and now they're busier than ever making face masks. So overall theme is just keep it real, communicate with yourself, communicate with your coworkers, and communicate with your clients and customers. Any questions, and you guys can feel free to reach out to me. My email is Jaclyn@musegroupmarketing.com, and I hope to hear from you, and I hope you all enjoyed this. So thanks so much.